Her father, stepmother, and Evelyn looked at each other hesitantly. Her stepmother was about to curse and start pounding on the door, but her husband caught her hand. "Let it go." Her father shrugged. "Come, let us leave." Perhaps the man was released from prison as well. There are all kinds of people in prison. Who knows why this man had been sentenced to jail? Hearing this, Evelyn and her mother exchanged a glance. "Then shall we just let it go?" Her father hesitated for a moment and said, "Let's wait. If Assistant Director Curtis holds Evelyn accountable in the future, then we'll think of other ways." He didn't have the courage to come in and challenge the man now. Evelyn frowned. Had the man just now really been in prison? Although she could not see very clearly since the man's hair was longer on top, she could still notice that he was good looking. Particularly for some reason, she felt that the man looked somewhat familiar, as if she had seen him somewhere before. Or was this man also a member of the entertainment circle? In the apartment, Grace looked at Jay and said, "Thank you." If Jay had not come back, she would have been beaten by her father just now. "Don't thank me for the help, sister. Isn't it what I should do?" He pointed at her ankle. "It hasn't healed yet. I'll apply safflower oil for you." The routine of removing her sock and shoes, rubbing in the oil, and wrapping her foot took several minutes. The whole time, he didn't say a word. Grace bit her lip and finally said, "Why didn't you ask me what those three came here for?" "I won't ask if you don't want to tell," he said. "Actually, it's nothing difficult to say. They are my father, stepmother, and half-sister," Grace said. "But now, they are no longer my problem." After hesitating for a moment, she asked again, "Didn't you have anything else to ask?" He should have heard her father scolding her in front of him, saying that she had been in prison. His eyelashes flickered, then he lifted his eyes. "What do you wish me to ask?" His dark eyes revealed a kind of strange silence under the dim yellow light. Ads by Pub Future. Grace took a deep breath. She was swallowed by shame, and that was something she'd have to contend with for the rest of her life. She was innocent, but that didn't matter. She'd been tried, convicted, sentenced, and had served her time. "I was sentenced to 3 years in prison for drunk driving and killing a person, Jay. I was released not long ago." Many people would change their attitude when they heard that. After her release, as long as people around her knew that she had been in prison, they would treat her with prejudice and deliberately keep a distance from her. There was a reason she was working in sanitation. No one else would hire her. As she waited for his reaction, for him to say something or judge her with his beautiful eyes, she felt as edgy as she had while awaiting the trial verdict in court. "Really?" he said indifferently, still concentrating on massaging her ankle. That's it." She blinked her eyes in surprise. "You don't mind?" she asked. "Why should I mind?" he asked in response. "As you said, from now on, we only need to care about each other, and there is nothing else to care about." Her heart seemed to swell in her chest. Here, with a total stranger, she found acceptance. How ironic that her only family, who should have loved her unconditionally, were completely incapable of this. Grace smiled as if she had been relieved of a heavy burden. "Jay, I am so lucky to have met you." Something flashed in his eyes, but it was gone in an instant. On Sunday, Lena specifically visited Grace's apartment. When she saw Jay, she could not associate him with the homeless person that was mentioned by her friend. And she made it a point to say so, in a whisper that wasn't really a whisper. Grace groaned and ultimately laughed. It was true. Jay looked good. Even in the cheap pants and sneakers and jacket more suited to an old man, there was no hiding his tall frame or strong muscles. His bone structure was too perfect, the kind of polished good looks that only came from surgery or good breeding. Although he was only wearing an ordinary cotton-padded jacket and trousers and cheap sneakers, even his too long hair fell just right, so it looked more intentionally styled than overgrown. He was a handsome man. A kind man. Grace valued Lena's opinion, but if her friend had anything negative to say, they'd be the last words on the matter. Just as Jay had defended her, Grace would not let anyone disrespect him in her house. Lena pulled Grace to the side and asked again, "Are you sure he is a homeless person who has no place to live? Seriously, I can't believe it. He can be a star or model just with his appearance." "Not all the good-looking ones are suitable to be stars or models," Grace replied. Lena thought again and realized that it was not easy to make a living in the entertainment circles. That took a certain personality and drive. "As you're stuck with him every day, don't you have any idea?" Grace rolled her eyes. Wasn't Lena worried before that Jay would do something evil to her? Now, she seemed to worry that she would do something to him instead. "He is a few months younger than me. I only regard him as my younger brother." Lena walked in front of Jay. "I'll be frank that you can live here if you want, but you have to promise that you won't mess around. And won't lie to Grace. You know, she hates deception, and if you are a liar, I'll call the police and have you arrested." "Lena, what are you talking about? Jay wouldn't lie to me," Grace replied in a hurry. "How long have you known him? Let's make it clear first." "Hey, Jay, did you hear that?" Lena said to Jason. He raised the corner of his mouth and said, "Okay, I know." He was smiling lightly at the moment, but saying, "I know," wasn't the same as vowing not to lie. She didn't miss the way he evaded her question. Grace's eyes rounded and she was shaking her head vehemently, so Lena dialed back her impulse to interrogate this man. She knew Grace. Grace had the biggest heart of anybody. And this man, Jay, was likely just the first of many strays she'd taken. Lena glanced at Grace. "Cats are easier, you know. Even a dog. They're always loyal." Jason snorted. Grace rubbed her eyes, embarrassed. "Walk me out," Lena said, slinging her arm through Grace's. "I can see why you keep him around," she said. "He's easy on the eyes, but I don't think he's all he appears to be." She kissed Grace's cheek. "Protect yourself. And call me if you need anything." Grace shook her head. "I will. Love you." When only the two of them were left in the room, and the door was closed and locked behind Lena, Grace said, "Don't mind what Lena said just now. She's just worried about me. She is your friend. No matter what she says, I won't take it to heart." Jason's expression revealed nothing. She didn't know to take him at his word or if he'd been offended. "Are you getting on well with her? Do you know what a life-saving straw is? When you are drowning, you can't grab anything no matter how hard you try. At that time, when you are able to grasp a straw, even if the straw can't save you, it will give you hope so that you won't despair." She murmured, "Lena is that straw to me." Back then in prison, Grace was alone. If Lena had not visited her frequently to encourage her, Grace might not have walked out of prison alive. There were days, too many of them, when she'd contemplated ending it all. It was Lena who had been giving her support over the past 3 tough years. The life-saving straw. Jason's eyes glittered. Lena seemed to hold a special place in Grace's heart. Jason asked, "Don't you find it funny to treat a person as such a lifesaver? What if they abandon you? Won't you feel despair?" Lena would not do that, Grace replied confidently, showing her absolute trust in Lena. Jason had no idea why he felt uneasy. Over the next few days, Grace's workload increased tremendously, as the management staff from Sanitation Service Center would be coming over for inspection. Most days, she had to work overtime. Fortunately, when she went home, Jay would have prepared dinner and he'd be there, a steady, calming presence waiting for her, and that warmed her heart. She had told Jay before to go ahead and eat. He shouldn't have to suffer just because she would return home late. However, he insisted on waiting for her so they could eat dinner together. Early in the morning, after cleaning the streets that she was assigned to, Grace returned to the Sanitation Service Center. After Putting away her tools, she stood on the lawn in front of the entrance. After a while, the inspectors from the Urban Management Bureau arrived. Everyone who was in charge of sweeping the streets stood on the lawn to welcome the inspectors, making it convenient for reporting. Grace's skinny body stood out among the group of middle-aged women. Your Grace. When the inspectors reached the sanitation service center, a woman of about 28 years old shouted out when she saw Grace. Grace lifted her head. The woman in the light blue suit had her hair up in a bun. Her face was round and her eyes narrow. She was ordinary, but her makeup made her look good. Grace was stunned for a while before she recognized her high school classmate, Mia Jenkins. It's you. Mia looked at Grace in amazement as she asked, "Why are you here? Are you now a sanitation worker?" "Yes, I'm working here," Grace replied. She didn't look away from Mia's gaze. After all, it was unavoidable for one to meet there. Ads by Pub Future. Old friends. No matter how embarrassing that would be, she had to face it. "Mia, do you know each other?" her colleague who had come along with her asked. That's right. Back then, Grace was the prettiest girl in the class and our valedictorian. She always topped in class. Many guys in our class liked her but Grace was always focused on her education. Mia deliberately praised Grace to the skies. The more she did that, the more it showed the contrast to Grace's current situation. As expected, the colleague frowned, commenting, "Was she the prettiest girl in the class?" "You must be kidding." Mia smiled faintly, and Grace tensed. She wasn't ignorant of the undercurrents here. Back then in class, a lot of students were envious of her. "Oh yes," Mia said. Our Grace was quite the swan. Right. And the ugly duckling was now the supervisor, while the swan was sweeping the streets. When Grace's colleagues heard what Mia Jenkins had said, they turned to look at Grace with different expressions on their faces. Some looked surprised, some looked at her with sympathy, and some laughed. The following day, after Grace had finished sweeping and went back to return the tools, a girl in the supply department asked her curiously, "Grace, everyone overheard Miss Perkins yesterday. Is it true what she said, about you being the prettiest and smartest?" Grace didn't reply. Farah Steele, another woman from the sanitation department, snorted. "What's the use of being the prettiest girl in the class or being super smart? Obviously, that couldn't be true, or she wouldn't be here." The girl who had asked Grace the question looked at Grace with embarrassment, but Grace merely lowered her head. After she had signed her name on the logistics record book, she turned to leave. Claire caught up with her and patted her on the shoulder. "Don't take Farah's words to heart. She's venting her anger on you because she likes Chase from the fleet." Grace looked puzzled, as she had no idea who Claire was referring to and what Chase had to do with her. "Chase is one of our drivers and he seems interested in you. He always greets you," Claire explained. She was truly concerned about Grace as she said, "Chase is a nice guy, and the center has plans for him. His parents have also bought him a house for his marriage. You may wish to consider accepting him." Grace shook her head as she replied, "No thanks. I have no intentions of getting into a relationship. You are already 27 years old. As a woman gets older, it will become more difficult to find a partner." "In that case, I shall remain single," Grace replied. After she came out of prison, she no longer harbored any hope of love or marriage. Back then, Sean had made several promises to her. He'd promised to love and cherish her, to protect her forever. And she saw how well that had played out. Her true love had watched as each of her 10 fingernails was ripped out, as the bones in her hands were stomped and broken. He had been the one to order the abuse. "No, thank you, Claire. I'm not looking for love or a relationship. I'm fine, but thank you for suggesting it." Claire pursed her lips. "How is your ankle?" "Much better," Grace replied absently. Claire shook her head. "It could be amputated, and you'd say the same thing. One corner of Grace's mouth tipped up. Complaining doesn't change things. You're right about that, I suppose. Claire tugged her down a hallway. Hey, all joking aside, give yourself a chance, Grace. The past is in the past. You have paid enough for it. You deserve happiness, more than anyone. Grace patted her shoulder. You are a good person. It seemed she had a few good people in her life these days, Lena, Claire. Jay. Her heartbeat accelerated. Jay knew her past, her failings. He didn't judge her for it. He wasn't boyfriend material, either, seeing as how they were in agreement about being the family neither of them had. As a brother, it was enough. But relegating him to that role did send a little pang of longing through her chest. I'm blessed, Claire, and happy with what I have. Wishing and hoping for more, that's the surest way to be discontent. Claire rolled her eyes. Fine. You win. I can't compete with all your Zen **T. She tightened her ponytail. You are a disgustingly positive influence, you know that. Grace laughed. There was a compliment in there, somewhere. I'll take it. On payday, Grace took Jay to the market to get a mobile phone. It's fine that I don't have a mobile phone, Jason said. He had not expected Grace to get him one. Nowadays, everyone has a phone. It will be more convenient for companies to contact you when you apply for jobs. You can't be distributing pamphlets all your life, Grace said. Moreover, if you have a mobile phone, it will be more convenient for us to inform each other if we would be home late. The two of them arrived at a stall in the market that sold mobile phones. There were different models, but Grace could only afford the older ones. She had checked on the internet and selected a few models. She indicated the ones she'd researched. They're not as fancy as the newer ones, but they still have Wi-Fi and most of the bells and whistles, so. She blushed. When I can earn more money, I will. This model is good enough. He cut her off. He lowered his head to take a serious look at the mobile phones. Suddenly, a voice was heard from behind them, saying, "Oh, Grace." Grace lifted her head, and saw Mia Jenkins and another woman walking toward them. They were out shopping. When they came near, Grace saw that the other woman was another of her high school classmate, Maria. What a coincidence seeing you here. Is that your boyfriend? Mia asked as she sized up Jay, who was standing beside Grace. When Maria saw that Grace did not respond, she said, "Hey, Mia, don't spout nonsense. I heard that Grace has a rich boyfriend. This guy doesn't dress like a rich guy. What a cheap set of clothes." Wow, that was horribly rude. Grace snuck a glance at Jay, but his expression was bland. Anyone watching would think he was oblivious to her classmates. Catty comments. Maria raised her brows. "Oh, are you feeling awkward? I forgot that your boyfriend already has a new girlfriend and they will be getting engaged soon." Over the past few days, the papers were reporting on the engagement between Sean and Lily. They are well matched in social and economic status. By the way, does your new boyfriend know that you are sweeping the streets? Sigh. Why did you say that? Mia commented. Mia wasn't stupid. There were privacy laws and the gossiping she was engaging in with Maria could get her tangled up at work. If Grace bothered to report it. If the higher-ups cared to write up her supervisor. If they wanted to take the word of an ex-con. What I've said is true. Didn't you say that she is currently working in the sanitation service center? Maria said arrogantly. Grace looked coldly at Maria. Since Maria was out to humiliate her, she would ignore her, lest she becomes more aggressive. She wasn't even angry for herself but for the cruelty toward Jay. Making fun of a man's clothes, how petty was that? Grace turned her head away from the woman and asked, "Jay, which model do you prefer?" "This one," he replied after choosing one of the mobile phones. Ads by Pub Future. Grace told the cashier to ring it up and get a new unit for her. "Go and sign up for a number," Grace said. "All right." I'll get it done tomorrow when I pass by the service provider, Jason replied. The two of them spoke as though they were the only ones around, disregarding Mia and Maria. Mia was not agitated, but Maria was fuming with anger. She was insulting Grace, but she felt as though she was the one being humiliated. When Maria saw Grace taking out her mobile phone to make the payment, she taunted, "What do you have to pay for the mobile phone? Grace, are you spending money on a gigolo? However, you don't earn much by sweeping the streets. That's why you are getting such a cheap mobile phone." As Maria was talking, she was looking at Jay. She felt that Jay was good looking. Although his hair was longer on top and shadowed his features a bit, there was no disputing his perfect mouth or jaw, or those dark eyes. "You don't have to be with her. Why don't you break up with her? I can get you a better mobile phone if you break up with her. You can choose any of the mobile phones in this market," Maria said. Maria's family owned a small business. Although she was not as wealthy as those influential people or the billionaire families in the city, she was richer than ordinary people. Jason pursed his lips as he stared at Maria. Maria reckoned that Jason was tempted and she continued saying, "What do you think of my suggestion? If you break up with her, we can be friends. I can take you for a spin in my BMW and introduce you to some of my friends in the film and television circle. Given your looks, you will have no problem becoming a star." Maria became more excited as she spoke. It would be the ultimate payback, to take this man away from Grace and see him shine. "I'm not interested in becoming a star. As for your BMW, take good care of it," Jason replied casually. Maria felt insulted as she said, "Do you know who I am? I can make you." "Oh, what can you do to me?" Jason asked as he looked at her coldly. Suddenly, Maria felt a chill traipse up her spine. Jason ignored the two women. After Grace had made the payment, she and Jay walked away with the mobile phone that they had just purchased. Mia tugged at Maria, asking, "Are you doing all right?" Maria bit her lip and replied, "I'm fine." But she felt threatened by that man. Their gaze from him seemed to be telling her that he was superior and he could crush her at any time. She thought she'd had the upper hand the entire time, and now, she felt like she'd made some grave mistake. However, that man was some loser, dating an ex-con and wearing a cheap set of clothes. She brushed the thoughts away. The man was beneath her. And that BTCH Grace, she was finally getting what she deserved. Mia pulled Maria along with her to shop and eat. After a while, when the two of them were at the car park outside the market, Maria received a text message. At the same time, a man in a black suit walked over to her, saying amicably, "Are you Miss Martin? We have transferred $85,000 to your account, which is based on the depreciation value of your new car. I believe that you have received the money." Maria was stunned. The man had to be referring to the $85K that she had just received in the text message. The man turned around and lifted his hand to make a gesture. Suddenly, a few men in black suits started to smash Maria's BMW with hammers. Maria and Mia were shocked. Maria screamed, "What are you doing? Call the police. I'm making a police report. Miss Martin, you've received the money, thus this car no longer belongs to you. I have the right to smash it." The man smiled. "No, I have no intention to sell my car. You can't smash my car." Maria wanted to stop them, but the few men ignored her and continued to smash the car. Within a short while, the beautiful car looked like a scrapper. You. Maria was so angry that she started to shiver. She almost lost the grip of her phone. "If Miss Martin wishes to make a police report, you may go ahead. However, I have records of our transaction." The man continued saying, "What can one do? My boss doesn't like your car. Miss Martin, please get a more pleasant-looking car in the future, lest it gets smashed again." After saying that, the man and the few men who had demolished her Beamer left. Many people crowded around to watch the scene. When Maria turned her head, she saw that Grace and the man by the name of Jay were looking in her direction, not far away from her. Maria felt rage beat at her heart, and she almost exploded. She had just flaunted her new car to them, but in the next instant, the car was smashed before their very eyes. Maria was angered and humiliated. Her hands fisted at her sides and she shook with the force of her outrage. She immediately turned to leave with Mia following her. That was slapping her in the face. Grace felt as if she were watching a show. The minute she stepped out of the market, she saw a few people smashing a car that seemed to belong to Maria. What happened? Has she offended someone and that person is taking revenge? Grace asked. Who knows? Jason replied as his eyes glittered. Anyway, it's none of our business. Grace took Jason's arm and walked to the bus stop. Suddenly, Jason stopped walking. Grace turned to look at him and saw that he looked pale. What's wrong? Grace asked, looking worried. Jay, are you okay? And nothing, Jason stuttered. He shook his head as if to clear it. You look like you saw a ghost. His gaze cut swiftly to her. The woman who stepped off the bus and disappeared into the market crowd, she looked too much like the woman who'd deserted her husband and son. Surely, he was mistaken. Grace frowned at him as they got ready for bed. She didn't pry and he credited her for holding her tongue. Thank you for the phone, he said and forced a smile for her benefit. Her smile wobbled a bit, but she nodded. It was obvious she was worried about him. But he was fine. As the lights dimmed, he closed his eyes and breathed deeply. He could mark the exact moment that Grace drifted to sleep. Her breathing evened out and she inhaled less frequently. Sleep awaited him for a while, as bits and jagged pieces of memories floated through his psyche. His father sat him down in the library and told him, Jason, don't follow in my footsteps. Even if you were to fall for a woman, don't love her wholeheartedly. Later on one of his birthdays, Dad said, the most unreliable thing in this world is love. When she no longer loves you, it will be useless even if you were to kneel before her. Then he was in the living room. Jason, one day, when you fall in love, you will realize that someone in this world has the power to control your emotions. She could make you live or die. However, if possible, Dad hopes that you will never get to experience. Ads by Pub Future. That. Jason blinked and tried to make sense of his surroundings. It was the mansion, but the wall color was different and there was a crib. Was this some nursery? Stop saying these things to me. Don't stay here. It's cold. It's so cold. Don't stay here. If you continue to stay here, you will freeze to death. The dark-haired woman stormed out the door and he followed. He had to catch her. He couldn't let her leave. Jason, I'm leaving. I don't want to hear your father telling me how much he loves me and is yet unable to give me the kind of life I want. I've already done my best. Who's that? Who's talking to me now? Don't go. Who's that talking about now? Oh, it's him. He's begging the woman. If she leaves, my father would. Don't go. Don't go. Jason struggled to catch hold of her, but it was like trying to catch the breeze. The surrounding area became darker and he was about to drown. He felt so terrible that he found it difficult to breathe. He struggled to grab hold of something, even if it was only a straw. Suddenly, he caught hold of something warm. A gentle voice rang beside his ears. Jay, Jay, I'm not leaving, I'm not leaving. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. This voice, Sister Grace, the woman who has asked me to address her as sister. The minute Jason opened his eyes, he saw a pretty face. Her dark eyes were full of anxiety, her pink lips opening and closing as if she were talking. She was telling him not to be afraid. He swallowed hard and then nodded. When Grace saw that Jay had awakened, she heaved a sigh of relief. Jay, what happened? Did you have a nightmare? Jason frowned. He had not had that dream for some time. It had been years, actually. Yeah, I had a nightmare. Jason realized he was holding Grace's hand tightly as though she was his lifeline. What was that nonsense she talked about straws and lifesavers? He thought it so sly when she'd said it, but there was no discounting that her presence brought him peace. In his dream, while he was about to drown, he had caught hold of something, her hand. And it had saved him. Jason immediately let go of her and the warmth he'd felt disappeared. A dull ache spread in the pit of his stomach. He curled up on his side. When Grace saw him move, she became concerned again. Are you not feeling well? It's nothing. He tried to suppress the pain. It's just stomach cramps. I'll be fine in a while. Does the pain come because of the nightmare? When Jason was young, he would suffer from severe stomach cramps whenever he tried to suppress his emotions. But that had been the reaction of a child, a boy too young to process his grief and forbidden to talk about it. As an adult, he'd not experienced a physical reaction like this. It was as if someone had reached into his abdomen and was twisting his organs out of alignment. Grace poured a glass of warm water and helped Jason to sit up. He managed to take a few sips. Grace looked worried. She suddenly stood up, saying, "I'm going out for a while." Before she left, she covered him with a blanket, afraid that he would feel cold and that would worsen his pain. The door clicked as it closed. The sound of footsteps outside the house became distant. Jason was left alone. On the one hand, he was glad that she wasn't here to witness his pain. He could bear it, and he would, and it was better that there was no audience for his weakness. But part of him also felt saddened by her departure. Like she, too, was abandoning him. He continued to *T his eyes, waiting for the pain to abate. The loneliness was familiar. Ever since his father passed away, Jason had been taken back to the Reed family. Although he had a grandfather and many servants around him, he still felt alone. After some time, the door opened. Jason heard a familiar voice gasp for air before saying, "Jai, I've bought medicine for you." Jason opened his eyes and saw her panting. Her hair was in a mess, and it was obvious she'd been running. Her pretty face looked worried. She had a cute nose and slightly red lips. Although Jason had seen many women more beautiful than Grace, at that instant, he couldn't shift his gaze away from her. He felt as though there wasn't another person in this world for him. Grace poured another glass of lukewarm water and took out 2 tablets, according to the prescription. She helped Jai sit up and watched as he swallowed the pills and washed them down. "If you still feel terrible, *T your eyes and try to sleep," Grace said. "If you're not well in a few hours, I'm taking you to the It'll pass," he said. She wrung her hands together, obviously not so sure. "Come up onto the bed," she said. And she guided him to lay out and rest his head on her pillow. The sheets and pillow smelled like her, clean soap and a hint of citrus. She smelled like summer. As she was about to turn around, Jai suddenly caught hold of her hand. "What is it? Should I call an ambulance now?" Grace asked. He was in a daze as he looked at her. He had caught hold of her hand unconsciously, as he didn't want her to leave him. After some time, Jai said, "Just stay with me." "Of course, I'll stay with you. You're not well, why would I leave? I'll lay right here beside you on the floor. Just say the word and I can get you anything you need. This bed can hold 2 people. Come and lie beside me." Even he was unaware of the longing look on his face. Grace bit her lip and hesitated for a while before nodding. "All right." She lifted up the quilt on the floor and lay down beside him. She was astonished that she had agreed to sleep beside a man. His scent enveloped her and his body radiated heat. Not like a fever, just a warm, healthy body. "Are you sure I can't take you to the hospital?" She didn't think he had insurance, but she could go on a payment plan. The cost was irrelevant, the only thing that mattered was his well-being. "I'll be okay," he assured her. "Just stay with me." She held his hand and shifted on her side so she could hold one arm over his body in a loose hug. It was a novel feeling to comfort this man, and for her, it brought into acute awareness how long she'd denied herself any comfort or any connection to another human being. Sure, she had her friends, and she loved them. But this involved trust, and connecting to someone new. After all that she'd been through, she was glad she hadn't lost all of her humanity. She switched off the light and then it was just the two of them, holding each other and quietly breathing. Sister, will you stay with me forever? Jai asked softly. Of course. In the future, when you get married and have a family, I'll still keep your company. Bonds could be forged that were stronger than blood. Hadn't she learned that? While her own father and half-sister had forsaken her, Jason had shown that he would be there for her. And she would be there for him. Jason slowly shut his eyes. He felt assured by her voice and the pain gradually lessened. Get married, he mumbled. Ever since the death of his fiancée, Jason had never thought of getting married. However, Grace was already thinking about that. Sister, do you mean what you said? Yes, she replied. Adds by pub future. He made a small sound and then allowed himself to fall asleep. Early in the morning, when Grace awoke, she lifted her hand to touch Jay's face and forehead. No fever, and his body had stretched out during the night, which made her think that the pain in his stomach must have lessened. He looked peaceful and handsome. His strong, big body took up most of the bed, and though she tried to roll away from him to give him more room, even in his sleep, he'd pull her close again. She edged away now, hoping to let him sleep a while longer. Morning. Grace believed that he was no longer in pain. Sorry, I woke you up, Grace said. It's still early. Rest a little longer. As Grace spoke, she hurried off to wash up and get changed. She set a pot of soup in the slow cooker and set out the medicine on the counter. Try to eat something. And please don't forget to take your medicine. You have to take it 3 times a day. After Grace had given the instructions, she hastily left. Once again, Jason was left alone in the small apartment. He buried his face in the spot where she had lain. He could still smell her, and feel the residual heat of her body on the quilt. This woman continued to care for him and asked for nothing in return. Only his friendship and company. He breathed her scent again and his thoughts turned to darker things. Terence saw his boss holding a cheap mobile phone. It was an old model, and it wasn't to his boss's usual taste. However, Mr. Reed instructed him to go and get a SIM card. So he did. Terence was surprised. But he didn't question his boss's request. He procured the SIM card in no time and handed it over. After his boss slotted the SIM card into the mobile phone, he sent a text message. Shortly, the text message alert tone resounded, and his boss, who usually looked cold, smiled after reading the message. Terence blinked his eyes in disbelief. He glanced at the sender of the text message from the corner of his eyes and saw the name stated as Sister. Mr. Reed was an only child. Could Grace be the sister whom Mr. Reed was referring to? In the afternoon, the top management of the Reed Group conducted its quarterly financial meeting. When everybody was listening attentively to the report, Jason's mobile phone suddenly rang. Everyone saw Jason take out a cheap, old model mobile phone and answer the call. He put the phone up to his ear and listened to the person speaking on the other end. All right, got it. I will remember to eat, Jason said. The top management was even more surprised than Terence. By the way, their boss sounded so gentle over the phone. Who is the boss talking to? William Schaff asked him. Terence pretended not to hear the question. After the call ended, Jason suddenly stood up and said, I need to go out for a while. Carry on with the meeting. After saying that, he walked out of the conference room, leaving the top management astounded. All of them then looked at Terence. Secretary Klein, what happened? Who called the president earlier? Terence smiled awkwardly. When the president answered the call, he was sitting close to him, so he heard the words, "Take medicine," on the other end of the line. Terence recalled seeing the bottle of medicine on the president's desk, and he reckoned that Mr. Reed had gone to take the medicine after receiving the call. Terence found it unbelievable. Mr. Reed went to take medicine upon receiving Grace's call. In the past, Jason wouldn't have taken medicine unless he was in great pain. And even then, it would be because he felt like it, not because someone told him to. "This is the president's private matter," Terence said. "Let's continue with the meeting." Terence nodded at the other board members and adhered to the schedule for the duration of the meeting. Across town, Grace put away her mobile phone and continued to sweep the rubbish on the streets with Claire. Claire caught her smile and asked, "Who did you call?" "My younger brother," Grace replied. "You have a brother?" Claire asked in amazement. "I never heard you mention it before." Grace merely smiled. After Grace and Claire finished sweeping, they went back to the sanitation building. A number of women were staring at the television on the wall, catching the news. It was official, the Stevens and Atkinson families would be united. It was hot celebrity gossip and her co-workers were eating it up. A picture flashed of the beautiful couple. Lily held out her hand, showing off a ginormous pink diamond ring. The 6-carat pink diamond ring is exceptionally rare and of the highest quality. The diamond costs around 10 million. "Lily is a winner," one of the women said as she stored her tools. "Lucky girl. Not only is she pretty and rich, but her husband is handsome and wealthy." Grace pursed her lips. Yes, they were both attractive and wealthy. But they'd ordered her torture and had stood by and watched as she'd had her fingernails ripped out and bones were broken. They might be pretty on the outside, but inside, they were ugly. Grace's body froze. Seeing Sean and Lily, and reliving those hours in the prison, the pain, the terror. Not knowing if she'd live or die. Her whole body shuddered. And that stupid ring. Sean had taken her to that jeweler and she'd tried it on. He'd been ready to buy it and she'd laughed and said it was too extravagant. She told him to save his money. Her love didn't cost anything. "Grace, are you going home?" a man's quiet voice asked. Grace lifted her head and saw a man about 30 years old smiling shyly at her. He had short hair and wore the uniform of the fleet. She recalled that this was Chase, from the sanitation service. "Center's fleet." "Yes," Grace replied. "I'm free. Let me take you home," Chase said. His light eyes crinkled at the corners. He looked kind. A little bashful even. Grace remembered Claire telling her that Chase was interested in her. That was sweet, but she had no intention of getting into a relationship. "You don't have to." Grace turned him down. "It's all right. I have a car. It's no trouble to give you a ride home," Chase said as he made a second attempt. "Ha, your car is too cheap. This is Grace Cummins. She only wants to sit in a luxury car. If you could buy her a 6-carat diamond ring, maybe then she'd let you drive her around," Farah said. Grace sighed. She was not interested in Chase, but she had wanted to let him down gently. Chase's face immediately turned red, not knowing what to say. Grace glanced at Farah and said, "I think perhaps that's your dream. Because you only care about material things. Or maybe I have it wrong, and you'll go home with anyone who asks you." Ads by Pub Future. Farah sucked in a breath. You. Farah was rendered speechless and she settled for glaring at Grace. Grace turned to Chase. "Thank you for the offer. You're very kind. However, I live nearby and I'm used to walking home." She left quickly after that, wanting to avoid a scene. On the way home, Grace bought some lean meat and vegetables. She'd never been one to enjoy cooking and had viewed it more as a necessity, but having someone to cook for mealtimes had more significance now, and she took more care with her recipes. After she returned to the apartment and started cooking, she settled into a comfortable routine. When Jay arrived as she was Finishing up, she smiled. Perfect timing. He grunted and removed his shoes and hung up his coat. Then he came beside her to wash his hands. His nearness had the oddest effect on Grace. It both settled and excited her, but she knew not to let her thoughts turn in such a direction. This was her friend, her brother, and she'd be wise to remember that. How are you feeling? Grace asked. Better. That's good. But please continue to take the medicine for another few days. I'd hate to see that pain flare up again. He nodded. Maybe you can look for another job. Something more stable so you can eat your 3 meals on time. Grace continued. Shall I help you check on the internet to see if there are any suitable jobs for you? It's all right. I will look around, Jason said. If you want me to get a stable job, I'll do that. Wonderful. Grace lifted her hand and touched Jay's head, smiling happily. She was really taking the sisterly role seriously. Jason wanted to laugh, but he knew that would hurt her feelings, so he turned his head so she wouldn't see him smiling. What would Grace say if she learned that he was the president of one of the wealthiest corporations in the city? That his job earned him revenues that rivaled some countries' GDPs. He had money, power, and privilege. As the head of Reed Group, there was nothing denied to him. He had everything that he had wished for, but he wasn't content. There was something that he desired. He desired, his gaze fixed on the person standing before him. Grace's mobile phone suddenly rang. She moved her away to pick up the call. When Grace answered the phone, a stumbling voice was heard on the other end of the line. Is this Grace? This is Chase. Claire gave me your number. I just, would like to tell you not to take to heart what Farah said. I know you're not a materialistic girl. Although I'm driving a domestic car, I'll work hard and get a better car in the future. Before Grace could reply, Chase had ended the call. Grace looked at her phone, appearing troubled. Who called you? He asked. His tone was sharper than he intended. A colleague from the sanitation service center, Grace replied as she put down the phone and resumed plating their dinner. Jason glanced at the phone and asked, a male colleague. Although she had not put the call on speaker, he could hear The's voice clearly. Yes. Does he like you? Jason frowned. Maybe, she replied. What about you? Do you like him? Grace shrugged. If he finds out that I've been to prison before, he will stay away from me. So it's not important whether I like him or not. Is there something wrong with you being in prison before? If he truly likes you, he will not mind that, Jason said. Grace smiled bitterly. Oh, I'm not so sure. Many people might not mind such things. Until they do. Love is not so true as the movies make it out to be. Jason tilted his head. What if that guy accepts that you were imprisoned before? Would you like him then? Jason asked. Grace was stunned. Was she open to a new relationship or the possibility of one, even? She wasn't sure. If someone is willing to accept me, knowing that I'm an ex-convict, I suppose, maybe. Jason looked unhappy. Would you like him? He was determined to get an answer from her. No, Grace replied, I'd treat him like any other colleague. Moreover, she had no desire to get into a relationship. When Jason heard what she had said, he smiled. In that case, continue to treat him like any other colleague. His smile deepened as he asked, Do you like me, sister? I like you, Grace replied without hesitation. I like you too. I like you very much, Jason said. It had been ages since he had last found someone who could interest him. After the inspection from the Urban Management Bureau ended, Mia told Grace. We're having a reunion with our high school classmate this weekend. Come and join us. A gathering. Grace laughed. Given her current condition, she would be mocked if she were to go. No doubt, that was exactly what Mia intended. You're so kind to think of me, she said. But, no, I'm not free, and I won't be going. Oh come on, Grace. These events are impossible to pull together. It's a rarity. What is it you're busy with? Come and join us. Mia tried to persuade her. Did Mia think that Grace was born yesterday? This woman had been rude, spiteful, and petty. She could just imagine how a reunion would play out with Mia, no doubt telling everyone how Grace, former beauty and valedictorian, lost it all, went to jail, and was currently working in sanitation. Nope, not happening. I need to work over the weekend. Do you really think that weekends would be rest days for me given the scope of my job? Grace asked. Mia was speechless when she heard that. Indeed, she had forgotten. However, I'm clearing the rubbish. Let's talk another time. Before Mia could finish her statement, Grace turned to leave. She was not stupid. And, seriously, Mia was so obvious. It's okay. You are okay. Tomorrow is a new day. Grace repeated her mantra and pushed the negative thoughts from her mind. She couldn't control the mean or shallow people around her, but she could control herself. And she could choose to meet experience with positivity. 2 days later, the vice director instructed her to send a document over to someone from the Urban Management Bureau only. Problem was it was the weekend, and the Management Bureau representatives were at a country club luncheon. Ordinary sanitation workers were not allowed to enter such a place, and more than one employee at the prestigious club tried to intercept her as she entered the lobby. Grace caught the odd stares of other wealthy people, their looks saying clearly, "What is she doing in here?" Like she was some other species or something. Grace had been to this particular club many times before for dinners and charity events. Sean belonged to this particular country club. One of the staff nodded to her. "We're expecting you," he said. "Follow me." Sure. The sooner she could hand off this paperwork, the better. Then she could leave. The staff member led her down one hallway and into another. Then he opened the door to a ballroom. Many people were inside. When Grace stepped in, she heard a familiar voice, saying, "Look who's here." Grace saw Mia Jenkins, Maria, and some of her high school classmates. "There you are, Grace," Mia called out loudly. Grace knew immediately that Mia had deliberately made this arrangement. As she was from the Urban Management Bureau, the supervisors would be eager to get on her good side. As long as Mia wanted a document and specified the person she wanted to bring it to her, the vice director would accede to her request. "See, I didn't lie to you. The prettiest girl in our class has become a sanitation worker," Maria said, looking snobbish. Grace's uniform completely stood out from the classy attire of the rest of the people in the private room. "Is this our beautiful super scholar? You were imprisoned for 3 years and I almost couldn't recognize you." Greg looked down, his long nose at her. "Oh, what's wrong? Sean didn't want to dote on you anymore after you killed his sister." Between the mention of Sean, the horrible accident that ended Jennifer's life, and seeing this man in front of her, Grace froze. The pain of so many memories slammed into her like a flood. Greg smiled. "You're not so high and mighty now, are you?" Grace stepped back instinctively. Greg had been a rich and entitled jerk back then and he didn't appear to have matured at all. She'd been cornered by him at a charity auction when she'd gone outside for a bit of fresh air. Greg grabbed her arm and assaulted her. If Sean hadn't come out to find her, she knew it would have been worse. Sean had taught him a lesson that day. But there was no one here to protect her now. Greg fingered a small scar near the corner of his eye. "Your ex is untouchable, but you aren't. And I still owe you for what he adds by pub future did to me." Mia and Maria's eyes were glittering like this was the greatest show they'd ever seen. Grace ignored Greg. She walked a few feet over to Mia and handed the paperwork over to her, saying, "This is the document you asked for." Mia smiled. After taking the document, she said, "Grace, sorry you had to make the trip." Sure, she was. From the way Mia grinned, this had been better than Christmas. Grace turned around and was about to leave the room when Greg caught hold of her arm. "Why are you in such a hurry? This is our reunion. Let's catch up." After saying that, he took a glass of red wine and put it to Grace's lips. Come on, drink up. Back then, you were convicted of driving under the influence. Don't tell me that you can't drink. Grace refused to open her mouth. She turned her head and pushed him away. Greg lost his balance and spilled the red wine down his shirt. He became angry and gave Grace one tight slap in the face, shouting, "Ugh, do you think you're still Sean's girlfriend? You are an ex-con and a sanitation worker. You don't know what's good for you." As Greg was shouting, he took up the bottle of red wine beside him and poured it over Grace's head. The cold wine soaked her body, embarrassing her. What chilled her more were the looks her other classmate gave her. They shook their heads and cringed, but no one called Greg to stop. No one tried to help her escape. Maria laughed openly. Mia smiled, saying, "Grace, apologize to Greg quickly. He may forgive you." Apologize. Grace found the idea ridiculous. She was humiliated and assaulted, but she was expected to apologize to Greg. No, that wasn't happening. She might be the butt of their jokes and she might have to deal with being looked down upon for the rest of her life, but she still had her dignity. Grace pursed her lips. No. Greg only became more infuriated. "Grace, do you think that you're still Sean's girlfriend? I'm giving you a chance to apologize to me. Even if I raped you right here, no one would stand up for you." A bell sounded, signaling the meal, and Grace was horrified as the other guests filed out of the room, ignoring her plight entirely. Greg grabbed Grace by the shirt front and sent her flying. She hit the ground hard and her shirt tore open, revealing her skin. "No!" Grace screamed as he advanced on her. However, none of her classmates spoke for her, let alone stood up for her. "What's wrong with her skin?" Maria asked. "Probably from the accident," Mia replied. "No, her pale flesh was because she hadn't been exposed to any sunlight during her 3 years of imprisonment, making her fairer than anyone. And the scars, they weren't from the car accident, but from the beatings and abuses she endured while imprisoned. Some of the scars had not faded away, and they were hideous." Grace struggled to stand up, and though she pushed to her knees, her hand remained anchored to the ground. "What the?" Maria was stepping on her right hand with her high heels. "Grace," she said dramatically, "why are you in such a hurry to leave?" "You have not yet apologized to Gregory," Maria said. She looked as if she couldn't wait to see Grace in a more pathetic state as she twisted her heel and stepped down harder. The pain in Grace's hand reminded her of her prison days when her finger bones had been broken inch by agonizing inch. Back then, Grace had been unable to defend herself and was forced to accept the treatment. However, Grace wasn't constrained now, and she wasn't going down without a fight. She used all of her might to push Maria's foot away from her right hand. Then she lunged to her feet and ran for the door. She wanted to get out of this place. She had to get out. She held her torn clothes around herself and ran forward. However, a strong force came from behind her, catching her by her hair and yanking her backward. She screamed, feeling hair ripped from her scalp, and then she gasped as her body connected with the floor. "Stop! Leave me alone." But the doors to the room remained closed and no one came to help her. Greg twisted the hand he held in her hair. "Are you trying to run away? Don't you know that my family is one of the shareholders of this club, eh?" Greg paused as he made that statement. A moment later, Grace heard a familiar voice saying, "Greg, what are you trying to do?" Grace froze instantly. That's Sean's voice. Grace shivered. She had never expected to meet Sean again, let alone in such a sorry state after getting out of prison. "Why have you brought your fiancé here for a meal?" "What a coincidence. Your ex-girlfriend is here to have a meal with me, too. However, your ex-girlfriend doesn't know what's good for her and she has agitated me." "Oh," Sean replied neutrally. Greg rubbed at the scar near his brow. "I'm thinking I owe her from our last time meeting." As Greg spoke, he pulled Grace's hair, forcing her to lift her head to face Sean. Seeing him, after all that had transpired, it was like a chasm of grief was boiling up to swallow her completely. And there, besides Sean, Lily Atkinson, the woman who'd egged him on to break her bones, who'd stood beside him and goaded him to show no mercy. Seeing them, being at the mercy of Greg, was like a nightmare roaring to life. "Let me go," she demanded. Greg looked at Sean as if asking his permission. Sean shrugged. "We're here for dinner," he said. "How you choose to entertain yourself is up to you, Greg. I have nothing to do with her." Grace was cut to the heart. Although she had given up on Sean and had resented him for his harsh treatment, part of her had believed that he'd been angry by the position her accident had put him in. She expected this of Lily, and could even think that Lily was blinded by her grief. But Sean, she'd never given him reason to punish her like this. She had expected his indifference, but she saw now that he truly wanted her to suffer endlessly. And for what? To impress his new fiancée. "You might want to take this outside," Sean suggested. "Yeah, I'll have a good night." He held out his arm and Lily accepted it. They paraded off like they hadn't a care in the world. Like he hadn't all but encouraged this man to rape her. "No," she screamed. "No." Greg started pulling her toward an artificial pond near the doors. "I'll press charges," she declared. "There are witnesses." Greg laughed. "You are an ex-con. And I own this club. Who do you think they'll believe?" Grace tried to stay calm, but her heart was beating 100 miles a minute. She dug in her heels, knowing if he got her outside, he'd overpower her. This couldn't be happening. She dug in her heels and cried out as her hair ripped again because she refused to stumble behind him. BTCH. Greg eyed the pond, and the next minute he took her and shoved her face beneath the water. Grace thrashed and choked and tried to hold her breath while fighting against his grip. As she started to lose consciousness, her head was dragged back up. She sucked in a giant gulp of air and then choked as water in her lungs came rushing back up. Before she could catch her breath, she was shoved back down again. He was punishing her, she realized. Greg had lost face when Sean beat the sh*t out of him all those years ago. Greg had never gotten over it, and while he couldn't take on Sean because of his family, Grace was an easy target. Cold water gushed into Grace's mouth and nose, suffocating her. "Grace, let's see who will save you now." On the next reprieve, she dragged air into her lungs and blinked rapidly. Oh my God, Sean was still at the edge of the room, near the grand staircase, and Lily was beside him. "My love," she said. "Jay is waiting for us. Don't let him wait too long." Lily's voice resounded in Grace's cars. "All right," Sean said, before turning his back on Grace with complete finality. Grace felt suffocated and she no longer had the strength to retaliate. Once, twice, the cold water covered her head, and no matter how she fought or rallied, there was no escape. Would she die like this? Had she survived prison only to end up the victim of some spoiled heir's revenge? No one would save Grace. Even if she managed to survive, she would be half dead. "Enough. Bring that woman to me." A voice suddenly resounded from the second floor. Grace blinked rapidly, but her vision was too blurry to see. But she knew that voice. Knew it intimately. "Brother." Lily's face was full of incredulity. "Is Jason going to see Grace?" Jason had attended her sister's funeral. Jennifer's fiancé had not cried. Jason had been stoic as one would expect of his position. But she'd thought it interesting that he could act so coldly. She couldn't help but wonder exactly what kind of matters would make this man's mood fluctuate. Now she was seeing anger on his handsome face which she had never seen before. Not even for her sister. But it was because of Grace, the woman who was as insignificant as an ant. The very woman who was responsible for her his fiancé's accident and death. She turned her head and looked at Sean next to her, but she saw the same disbelief in Sean's eyes. At this moment, Terence, who was standing beside Jason, hurriedly leaned toward Jason and whispered something. Ads by Pub Future. Asterisk. The splashing had stopped. It seemed even Greg was curious about what Jason Reed, CEO of Reed Group, might say. Just at that moment, Jason's voice rang again. Forget it, you go down and deal with it. It's too noisy. Terence nodded. And Secretary Terence, Jason warned quietly. I expect you'll know how to handle this. Of course, sir. He nodded once more and left in a hurry. Grace felt as if she had heard Jay's voice just now, but Jay's voice had always been calm. It was never as angry as the man she'd heard hollering. Jay. That cool, chiseled face that was as beautiful as an angel's flashed across her mind. If she died, would Jay miss her? Would he be all right without her to look after him? Just when Grace felt that she was going to suffocate and pass out, the pressure on her neck suddenly lightened. She collapsed to the ground, coughing and taking big gulps of air. Greg had been stopped by two uniformed security guards. He lay on the ground awkwardly, and a lot of security guards were standing around him. At the same time, a high-level manager of the club hurried over. Manager Wang, what are you saying? Tell them to let me go. Greg shouted. I have shares in this place and I demand you let me go. I will have you fired for this. However, Manager Wang did not even look at Gregory. He walked directly to Grace and said respectfully, Miss, you can leave now. People from the reunion trickled in from the dining room as Greg was screaming and making a scene. Manager Wang reached for her elbow to assist her, but Grace jumped back reflexively. He frowned. Do you require assistance? She shook her head no. Manager Wang, what the hell are you talking about? She is just a sanitation worker. I won't allow her to go. What right does she? See, this is the order of Mr. Reed. He doesn't like to be disturbed, Manager Wang said. The words, Mr. Reed, immediately made Greg tremble all over. In this city, he was at the top of the hierarchy. The wealthiest, the most powerful, with his hand in everything. Mr. Reed. Greg pushed a hand through his hair. Are you nuts? Why would he stand up for this woman? She's the one who killed Mr. Reed's fiancée. However, Manager Wang did not offer further explanation. Even Grace, who was standing to the side, was stunned. It was so ironic. Grace adjusted her clothes, stood up awkwardly, and left in a hurry. She did not notice that there was a person on the second floor who had been staring at her, watching her every move, ensuring she made it to safety. Jason stared at Grace's sorry figure. She was just a target in the game, but why did he feel uncomfortable when he saw her being treated like this? It was because, even if she was a target in their twisted games, he could not allow others to touch her. Even if he wanted to torture her, he was the only one who could do it. No one else was allowed. This is what he told himself. After a while, he turned around and left. Sean, who was standing not far away, looked at Grace's back and a thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. Lily, who was next to him, gnashed her teeth in anger. Grace is really lucky. Greg, that idiot, can't he be less ostentatious? He just had to disturb Jay. Sean shrugged, but his gaze remained on Grace. Terence greeted Manager Wang. Terence stared at Greg as if he was looking at a dead man. They were all the same, these wealthy young men. Too much money, too little control. Always someone to clean up their messes. But Gregory, he had gone too far today. And the foolish man was about to pay the price for provoking someone under Mr. Reed's protection. It was a coincidence that Mr. Reed Mr. Reed happened to be at the club today, and had seen what had just happened. What might have befallen the young woman had they not been here? What would befall Gregory if he'd successfully followed through with his assault on her? Terence had heard the commotion, the disturbance, as his boss had called it, and he'd seen the Stevens heir and several other people watching on while Miss Cummins was nearly drowned in a decorative pond. Of all the things, he considered himself a master at his role and as the direct liaison to Reed Group's president. Terence took his job seriously. Ads by Pub Future. What would Mr. Reed do? He knew exactly what his young boss would expect. Terence said to the security guard at the side, "Whatever he did just now, do it again." The security guards immediately heeded the order. Two strong and powerful guards dragged Greg directly to the side of the pool, grabbed the back of his head, and dunked him into the water over and over again, just like Greg had been doing to Grace before. As for those ex-classmates who came out to spectate, as well as Sean and Lily, they were all a little dumbfounded. Who would have thought that things would develop like this? The security guards seemed to have no intention of going easy on him. Manager Wang had no intention of pleading for Gregory either. Good. They all knew who the real muscle was in this city. After all, the Anders family was only one of the shareholders of this club. At present, merely the son of a shareholder had been sacrificed. Manager Wang knew the other shareholders would want to be on the right side of Jason Reed. Terence turned his head and his gaze fell on Sean and Lily. Lily was the first to come to her senses. She smiled and said, "I'm sorry for letting Mr. Reed Reed wait. We'll go to see him now." "No need," Terence said calmly. He'd overheard every word this young couple had said to Grace. "Mr. Reed said that he won't have time to meet the two of you today anymore. The both of you may go back." With that, Terence left without waiting for the two to react. Grace returned to the sanitation service center, still shaken. "My goodness, girl, why are you drenched? Did you fall into the river?" Claire asked. Then she saw the state of Grace's torn clothes, and her teasing tone evaporated. "Did something happen when you sent the documents?" Grace took a deep breath and slowly said, "The documents, never mind, just now. I accidentally fell into a small pool. It's such a cold day, you need to go home and change out of your clothes and dry your hair," Claire said. Grace nodded. Claire stood by awkwardly while Grace grabbed her purse and phone from her locker. "Hey, I'm not sure this is even the right time, but Chase asked me about you. He's interested. And he's a nice guy, Grace." Grace slammed her locker closed. "Claire, I've said that I don't want to be in a relationship now. Why don't you help me with Chase, and instead of encouraging him, why don't you tell him not to put his hopes in me anymore? It'll only be a waste of time." Claire sighed. "If you really don't have the heart to take a chance on him, I will tell Chase. But I want it noted that I think you're wasting a great opportunity here." Grace nodded. She was too tired to argue. "Seriously, Grace, that is no way to live through. You don't really want to be alone until you die." Inexplicably, a handsome face appeared in Grace's mind. She'd have Jay. Well, not in the romantic sense. But they'd be family. And that would be enough. "I appreciate you, Claire," Grace said before starting her long walk home. In the evening, when Grace returned to her apartment, Jay was already there. I'll get dinner started in a moment. I just need to shower first." Jason grabbed hold of her hand. "You are soaking wet and it isn't raining." She bit her lip. He reached out gently and touched her shirt where it was torn. "How did this happen?" The question was delivered in an even tone, but she sensed the emotion coursing in him. Jason's eyes burned into hers. "Sister, did anything happen to you today?" "What would have happened to me? I've just been sweeping the road like I usually do," she said. She did not want to tell him what had transpired. What could he do? And with his stomach, what if news of her assault upset him? "Oh, it's nothing." She tried to move past him into the bathroom, but he caught her by the hand. She winced. Jason rubbed the wound. A dime-sized hole that was swollen and bleeding. Compliments of one well-placed stiletto heel and 110 pounds of force. "What about this?" Jason said. "Is this an occupational hazard?" Grace looked at the back of her right hand, at the spot where Maria had stepped on today. Today, when I was working, I accidentally hit it. It's nothing, she said casually, not wanting him to worry. Is that so? Jason stared fixedly at Grace. Sister, if someone bullies you, just tell me and I will stand up for you. He would make those people pay the price. In the future, no one would dare bully her. For a moment, her heart pounded quickly. It was as if he knew everything. Was he testing her? She didn't want to lie. Not to him. But she didn't want him to worry either. Especially when he couldn't help her. He was poor and broken down like her. And if he were to take on one of those privileged assholes, it'd only end badly for him. And she wouldn't let that happen. I can protect myself, she said. What if you can't? He asked. If that were the case, it would still be useless to tell him, but Grace did not say that. She didn't want to prolong this conversation. 2/6. Don't you want me to protect you? He stared at her with his dark and deep eyes. She bit her lip. You already saved me once, remember. Now it's my turn to try and protect you. And I'll try my best not to let others bully us. There was a flash in his eyes, but he did not say anything in the end. Instead, he simply replied faintly, okay. After dinner, Grace took that shower she'd been waiting for. Underneath the hot water, she tried to channel all of those terrible feelings and fears out of her and right down the drain. She only partially succeeded. In law school, she'd studied and strove to always protect the innocent, and yet, what had she learned? That there were many people above the law, and being innocent didn't mean you couldn't lose. Ads by Pub Future. What happened today was proof of that. She shuddered. What if that man on the second floor hadn't intervened? What then? Would that bastard Greg have abused and drowned her? And what of Maria and Mia, too, classmate, who'd stood by and watched the assault? If she were to press charges, they would be accomplices. If she wasn't a convicted felon. If their families didn't have enough money to buy entire juries, if anyone actually cared about her or the pain they'd caused her. She knew seeking justice was pointless. It would never come for a person like her. It's okay. You are okay. Tomorrow is a new day. She said it over and over again, but deep down, she knew it wasn't true. Jason found it hard to bite back the words he wanted to say. On the one hand, he knew why she remained silent. His sister was hellbent on protecting him, which was just ridiculous. Maybe she was holding back because of his physical sickness from the other night. If that was the case, well, FCK that. He'd been in pain, yeah. But it was bearable. He'd allowed her to mother him because he'd sensed that was what she needed to do. Grace sat back down at the kitchen table. She wore a fluffy bathrobe over her pajamas and she worked in the dim light of the kitchen lamp to sew back together the uniform shirt that Gregory had torn. Jason's hands clenched into fists. Grace hummed some nameless tune. She had her head lowered, and her long hair was hanging loosely over her shoulders. Her hair seemed to lack some shine due to malnutrition. After 3 hard years of imprisonment and the recent exposure to the wind and sun, her skin was not fair at all. Even though she had a comely appearance, she still looked weathered, and given all that had befallen her in the short time he'd known her, it was obvious the hardships in her life were taking their toll. However, at this moment, she was sewing her clothes, stitch by stitch, and she looked beautiful. The quiet and elegant way about her was unusually attractive. In the circles he moved in, he seldom saw women sewing clothes like this. The very notion was laughable. The women he knew wore couture clothes that cost more than Grace would make in a year. He had never thought that one day, such a simple and plain woman would capture all his attention. Grace finished sewing and looked up. She met Jay's gaze. His eyes were so focused that her face turned slightly red. "What's wrong with you?" she whispered. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "I just think that you are really beautiful," he said. Grace laughed. She knew how big the gap between her and her past self was. At most, she was not ugly. "You're sweet," she said. From her tone, he knew she was patronizing him. But the blush in her cheeks and lingering smile told him she liked the compliment. "By the way, when I was free earlier during the day, I saw something for you on the internet. Have a look, do you like it?" She took out her mobile phone, opened the shopping website, and clicked on a sweater in the shopping cart. Then she handed the phone over to show him. Jason looked at it. It was particularly attractive and expensive. From the reviews, he could tell that tens of thousands of pieces had been sold. "You only have one sweater for winter," Grace said. "And you don't even have a spare one. I think the reviews for this are rather good, so it seems worth the price, and you should look good wearing this color." "If you like it, I will like it," Jason said. "Don't think about what I like. You should like it yourself. If you don't like it, I will find you another one in a different style." "That's okay, this one is good," he said. "Okay then, I'll buy it for you." Grace started the online purchase. She was staying up late into the night to stitch back her own clothes but was going out of her way to buy him something new. He looked at her and suddenly asked, "Why are you so good to me?" "The coat and clothes, the phone and food." He knew she didn't make much money. She couldn't afford to buy him these things. "You are like my younger brother. Of course, I have to be good to you," she said as if it was given. However, for some unknown reason to him, the whole younger brother was a little hard for him to hear. Had she really forgotten that he was actually still a man?